Hey everybody, it's Rob here at Trinity Streetsville, and here at Trinity we're just a group of ordinary people learning to follow Jesus in our own day. You've probably heard the old saying, many hands make light work. That's true on the farm, and it's also true when it comes to faith. Today we're going to be discovering why sharing our lives and sharing our work is so important. So stick around and let's learn how we're way stronger when we work together. So Dad, in the good old days, the community of farmers used to come together. It really was a shared venture.
Oh, very much so. The big community job was thrashing. People would go from farm to farm, thrashing the crops everyone had grown. Usually a gang of about 12 people would bring the sheaves in from the field. Next day, they'd move on to another farm. Just went on and on. Usually you'd spend 2 or 3 weeks to bring in the harvest.
The idea was you're helping your neighbor and your neighbor and your neighbor because you know that they're eventually going to come around and help you.
That's right. Nobody kept track of the time. Have a big supper at the place where you were working with some help from neighbors too. It was a lot of work, but it was a certain degree of camaraderie and the satisfaction of getting a job done together.
Do you ever still do that these days? Do farmers get together to help each other out, you think?
I'm trying to think of an instance, and really I'm not sure. The combines have taken over. It's a thing of the past. And it wasn't all bad because you spent a lot of time away from home.
Is it possible to farm alone?
Maybe not entirely, because most of us rely on custom work to some degree. You hire somebody with the implement that you need.
More hiring and less volunteering.
Yeah,
it's contracting, not community building.
That's right.
Did anyone ever show up for our family when we needed help?
Back in the early days when we first came to Canada and to this farm, my parents didn't drive. The neighbors helped us, taking us places and that sort of thing.
Do you remember that year that there was a big drought and our pond ran dry?
Yes. We always relied on the pond to supply water for the cows. By the end of summer, the pond would be pretty low and you'd be relying on the fall rains to replenish it. But this one year, it never rained from September till early December. And so we had to lay a temporary pipeline from a neighbor's pond 3/4 of a kilometer away and fill our pond until the rains came again. This was a barn fire. Yes, of course, people did rally around the place where the losses occurred, and they stepped up and supplied feed and housing for animals, and that was almost standard procedure. Oh, I think community is very important. You learn from community, at least I did. Those people we met in those days, here 50 some years later, we still socialize with them, go to their weddings and funerals and whatnot.
So we're continuing our summer teaching series, which we're calling Growing Season, and we're trying to look at the connection between things like farming and our spiritual lives and faith and God and the Bible and all of that good stuff. And there you have the picture we've all seen so many times. There is the lone farmer standing out, looking out over his field. The sun is creating a nice silhouette, and there he is. He's completely self-sufficient. It's kind of an iconic image. It's a familiar image, and it's also a complete myth. It's a myth because the truth is that no farmer truly farms alone. Every farm depends on a community of support and friendship. So if I even think back to the farm I grew up on, the dairy farm there, our family was very tightly connected to other dairy farmers in the area. There was the Balkers over on Link Road. There was the Wingers on Regional Road 20. There was the Fletchers out on Concession 4. And one of my best friends lived on a dairy farm on the Raynham Road. And so this community was there for each other. They supported each other. They were friends with each other. And though, yes, there might have been one family's name on the mailbox at the end of the laneway, no farmer really farmed alone. But today we hear the story of a farmer who'd tried to do just that. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother, and there was no end to his toil. This farmer, for whatever reason, he has nobody working with him. He doesn't seem to have any friends. He doesn't seem to have any neighbors. And he doesn't even seem to have any family. And that's kind of interesting because family is so essential. Family farms, you depend on your brothers and sisters and cousins and aunts and uncles. You depend on all those people to come out and make things work. But for some reason, he doesn't have that. And we don't really know the reason behind this man's story. Maybe something had happened to his family. Maybe he was just a loner. Or maybe he was afraid to ask for help. We don't know why he's alone. But I dare say we do know the temptation, because we too live in a culture that really, really admires the self-made person, right? The person who says, I did it all on my own. I conquered all of my own problems. I bore all of my own burdens. That's what culture says we should be aiming for, but there is a cost to living that way. What is the cost? It says right there, the cost is there is no end to his toil, right? He had no one to step in and take the next shift, no one to help him out in a time of crisis. And so that leads this farmer to eventually say, gosh, why am I even doing this? For whom am I toiling? Why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is a meaningless, miserable business. I think this is the saddest part of the whole reading, because apparently and presumably at one point, his work gave him great meaning and gave him great joy. But now it's just an endless chore. Twice he calls it meaningless throughout the reading. Meaningless, he says. And that's sad, because actually honest work is not meaningless. Honest work is good. But if you don't have relationships, then that work loses its meaning. You know, life is not just about what we can accomplish. Life is more about who we accomplish it with. And I got to tell you, farming has got to be one of the hardest jobs out there. But having other people to share in that work can make that difficult work meaningful and even provide a sense of enjoyment there. Now, that is not just true on the farm. It is also true in the workplace, and it is also true in our spiritual lives, right? Christianity is not a solitary life. Though many people treat Christianity, much like that farmer did, as some kind of private thing that exists just between you and God. And so we worship in private, we pray in private, we struggle in private, we grieve in private, and we may even this morning be sitting in a church filled with people, but we feel very much alone, very much alone. And so it could be a farmer in the field, could be you in the pew, but community is essential to what makes for a meaningful life. So today, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about why we need each other. And I've given you a few notes. You can follow along, just so at the end of the sermon today, you don't say, it was meaningless. What did he say? It was completely meaningless. No, that's what the notes are for. Let's talk about why working together is so important. And here's the first reason, and I think it comes back to that old farm saying, right? Say it with me. Many hands make light work. Or as the book of Ecclesiastes puts it, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. Now that is not complicated theology, my friends. 2 is better than 1. 2 is better than 1. 2, pretty much 2 of anything is better than 1. 2 Joe Louis is better. 2 donuts is better than 1, right? And hard work becomes lighter when many people are invited into it. And you've learned this. We all learn this pretty quick in life, and you certainly learn it on the farm. Let me tell you one of the places you learn this most on a farm, and that's when you're unloading hay on a summer day. How many people here, just show of hands, have ever had the experience of unloading a hay wagon on a hot summer day? Yeah, more than you would think. This is the best way to do it, okay? 2 people in the wagon, 2 people in the mow. One person in the wagon shakes the bale loose, tosses it down to a second person who puts it on the elevator. The elevator is going to take it up into the hay mow. Up in the hay mow, the bale falls off, and 2 people, so they don't pile up on you, take those bales and stack them back and forth. So you shake and you load and then you stack. You shake, you load, you stack. Shake, load, stack. There's a rhythm to it. If you get into that rhythm, if you get really moving, you can unload 7, 8 wagons of hay in a single day. But if it was only one person doing it, it would be ridiculously inefficient. You would have to start by shaking down a bale, and then you would have to throw it on the elevator, then run into the barn, climb up the ladder, go into the mow, take that bale, stack it, then run back, go back down the ladder, go back, and do it all over again. You'd be exhausted by the time you got a dozen bales up in the hay mow. When we work together, this is the thing, we make possible what would otherwise be completely overwhelming. Something kind of like this. Look at them go. There they are. Hey, listen, no one person can carry a barn, but 300 Amish people can. And each person carrying a little bit of the weight. Actually, after church, if you guys wouldn't mind just sticking around, I wouldn't mind if Trinity was about 6 feet closer to the road, and I thought we could all just, get in there and make short work of it. But that's what shared labor is all about. We distribute the weight. We bring our different strengths to the work. And when we do that, the thing is, it doesn't just change the speed of the work, and I sped that up, obviously. It changes our enjoyment. It changes the spirit of the work, too. I mean, tell you, unloading hay was hot, dirty, dusty, itchy work. But when you were doing it with people, you started talking, you started joking. You at least had someone to share the misery with. And so that, I think, is part of the good return that the author of Ecclesiastes is talking about. It's not just that we get work done faster, it's that we actually reclaim some of the joy of working together. But sharing the load isn't just like some good idea that, folk wisdom or something like that. It's actually a biblical command. Look at this 3,000-year-old farming command found in the book of Deuteronomy. If you see your fellow Israelites' donkey or ox fallen on the road, and let's be honest, who hasn't, right? Do not ignore it. Help the owner get it to its feet. So you're not allowed to walk past your owner's problem and say, hey, not my donkey, not my ox, not my farm, not my problem. No, the command is no. You get down there and you put your own 2 hands under that and you help. And that is because there are some loads that were just never meant to be carried alone. And a little timeout right here would be helpful, because some of you have come to church this morning and you're carrying very, very heavy loads, and you think you need to carry that alone. And one of the things maybe you're going to learn today is that you do not need to carry that alone. In fact, you were never meant to carry that alone. It's too heavy for you to carry alone. When someone is carrying too much, what we do is we shoulder the load with them. And we don't just say, hey, I'll be praying for you. We say, hey, what can I carry? The church, therefore, is not just a bunch of people sitting on their own little spiritual farms waving at each other over the fence. No, we are actually all working in the same field. You know, the Apostle Paul says we are co-workers in God's service. This is true. This is true even right here at Trinity. No one person could run Camp Trinity. No one person could coordinate our community meal that's coming up this week, as you just heard. No one person could teach our children. No one person can just lead worship. But when everyone takes hold of it, takes a little part of it, then the load becomes lighter. And guess what? Relationships start to get formed. And guess what? The work moves forward. So that is the first thing that we learn about working together. Many hands make light work. But secondly, working together means that we can actually help each other when we fall. I mean, on a farm, think about it. What happens when someone gets hurt? What happens when someone gets sick? You got to have a contingency plan. You got to have somebody else who can drive the tractor when you can't. You got to have somebody else who can milk the cows when you're too sick to milk the cows. And so therefore, shared work is not just about efficiency, but it's about resilience, right? Here's how Ecclesiastes puts it. If either of these, two people were to fall down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls down and has no one to help them up. So whether it's on a farm, whether it's in your family, or whether it's in a church, people are going to fall down. We all fall down from time to time. The real tragedy is not falling down. The real tragedy is when you fall down and you've got nobody there to help you stand back up again. And therefore the work or your life or your goals all come to a grinding halt. Look with me quickly, another ancient book, the book of Nehemiah. Here's what had happened. A famine had struck the land. Many families, not all, but many families were going hungry, and as a result, they were having to mortgage their houses. They were having to sell their fields. They were having to take out loans in order to pay their taxes. Okay, and so many of them, are in this real predicament. These people have fallen down. Okay, they could not get back up by themselves. But here's the thing: instead of helping each other up, what the neighboring farmers were doing to each other? They were actually profiting from them. They were lending money at very high interest. They were taking their fields. They were taking their homes. In other words, they were using their neighbors' weaknesses to their own advantage. And Nehemiah, who was the leader at this time, he was just furious. He said, don't do that. He said, you give back to them their fields. Give back their vineyards and their olive groves and their houses. And you give back that interest. Because when you see a family going through a crisis, that is not a business opportunity for you. Right? You do not look at someone who has fallen down and say, what can I get out of this? You look at them and you say, how can I help them get out of this? And the people were like, oh my gosh, you're so right, of course. And so what they did is they returned the property and they canceled those debts so that the people who had fallen down could get back up. And the message there is clear. One farmer's problem is every farmer's problem. We don't kick each other when we're down. We don't use somebody else's hardship to enlarge our own farm. Because here's the thing, my neighbor may have had a bad harvest this year and he needs help. But next year it could be me. I could be the one with the problem. I could be the one with the bad harvest, and I could be the one who needs help. So we mitigate the risks of life by standing together. And again, remember, I'm not just talking about farming up here. We're talking about life in general, right? And life will knock us down. You will get knocked down. We all get knocked down. There'll be grief. There'll be illness. We'll all go through failures in life. Right? And sometimes when people are knocked down, it's obvious. We can see it as soon as they walk in the room. Other times, we can't see it. Right? Because we hide it really well. We keep smiling. When people ask us how we're doing, we say, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And so in order to kind of see that they've really fallen down, we have to be really carefully paying attention to the people around us. Right? And in those moments when we found someone who's fallen down, we don't just go around offering advice to them. We have to offer support. Advice stands above someone and says, let me tell you what you need to do. But support comes alongside someone and says, show me what I can do for you. And that might mean bringing a meal to someone. It might mean driving someone to appointments, or it might mean helping to arrange childcare, or whatever the case may be. But just look at the words of Ecclesiastes, right there. Labor, fall, help, keep warm, overpower, defend, right? These are all action words. These are all things that we do. When someone falls down, we don't just feel sorry for them. I'll pray for you. No, we reach down and we help them up, and we do what we can to help them carry what they can no longer carry themselves. Because again, the worst thing is not falling down. We all fall. The worst is when you fall and you discover there's no one there to help. And whether it's farming or family or faith, our worst seasons should never have to be faced all alone. Okay, so that brings us to the third benefit I want to share with you today about working together. Yes, many hands make light work. And yes, we can help each other when we fall down. But there's also seasons when we actually can't fix what's wrong. There's situations where we can't solve people's problems. You know, the crop has already failed. The diagnosis has already come in. You know, the funeral is already booked, right? And in those moments, what we need most is not someone to do work for us. What we just need is someone to be with us, to be near us. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but when winter settles over a farm, you can see what the cows do in the field. They all kind of just gather together. They instinctively move together and face inwards to preserve the heat. There's warmth that comes when we get close. We all need the warmth of community when life turns bitter and cold on us. Ecclesiastes says, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? When I read this, I picture, two shepherds on a cold, cold night sharing a tent, helping one another endure the bitterness of the night. That's what community does. It doesn't always solve the problems. It doesn't always answer all the questions, but it helps us endure. It helps us endure what we're going through. We can't always take away a person's pain, but we can move closer. We can move closer and we can say, hey, you don't have to go through this alone. Isolation increases our exposure. If you're at a bus stop or in a farmer's field or whatever, just standing alone, man, every wind just feels colder. And going through life, every burden feels heavier when we're carrying it alone. And that's true emotionally, it's true spiritually. You can feel isolated even if you're in a crowd. I mean, that's the thing. It's not just like get with a group of people and then you won't feel isolated anymore, because you can attend church every single Sunday and still feel like no one actually knows what's going on in your life. In fact, I would say one of the saddest things I ever see here at Trinity, and it doesn't happen very often, thanks be to God, but if after the service is at coffee hour, right? And everybody goes over to coffee hour and we all huddle up in our own little warm groups to kind of have a chit chat. And there's a visitor standing there in the middle of coffee hour holding a cup of coffee, and no one has approached them. The coffee is hot, but that experience is cold. Something changes though when one or two people walk over. Something changes when a circle opens up and they say, hey, come on in. That's how warmth begins in community. It doesn't happen through a program, but it happens when someone notices and someone makes room for the other. The reading talks about how two people can keep warm together, but it also talks about how two people can stay safe together. Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of three strands is not quickly broken. There's another old saying, right? There is safety in numbers. One person can be easily overpowered, but two people standing back to back can see things that one person alone cannot see. A third person is even better. A fourth would be even better. A fifth, a sixth, a seventh. When we're isolated, The evil one whispers things to us and says like, hey, no one cares. No one understands. You're all alone. But Christian community can interrupt those lies. And strength grows as we huddle together. So again, sometimes the most powerful thing we can do for someone is not to try to answer their questions or solve their problems, but just to be a presence, just to pull our chair a little closer to them and bring the warmth. The crisis may not go away, but it's more bearable when someone is beside you. So here's a quick little self-check for us all. Do you have a group of people like that? Do you have a huddle of folks you can get together with who know what's going on in your life, who can support you in a time of crisis? This is why we are always pounding the drum about life groups here at Trinity Streetsville, right? Just these smaller circles of people who stand beside one another and pray for each other and care for each other in difficult times. If you'd like to explore joining a life group this fall, fill out that Connect card that's in your pews, or go visit the welcome desk after the service and find out more about life groups. Because you might not need that support right now, and you might not need that support every week, but when the temperature drops, you don't have to face it alone. One more thing I want to say about our need for community, and that is this, that no human community is perfect. Family will disappoint you, friends will let you down, and the church, as you all know, gets it wrong time and time again. Even the disciples failed Jesus when it came to community. Jesus wanted them to be with him on the night before he was going to die, and they still fell asleep on him. Even the strongest human community, therefore, reaches the limits of its strength. You may have great friends, but there's burdens that they cannot bear. You may have some faithful people in your life, but even the most faithful person grows tired eventually, and that's why we need something even stronger to support us. Let me take you back to that one little cryptic line that our reading ended with. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. For centuries, when Christians have read that line, they have thought about Jesus Christ as that 3rd strand. Jesus the one in the midst of our life. Jesus the one in the midst of our family. Jesus the one in the midst of our church who was offering his strength and holding us together when every other strand broke. He would hold strong. Jesus knew all about being alone. Jesus knew all about falling down on the cross. Jesus knew the bitterness of abandonment and the coldness of death. But when he rose from the dead, Jesus didn't abandon the people who had abandoned him. No, he went immediately and he regathered them together and he restored them and he brought together his followers and formed a new family, a family that he called the church. And that is what Jesus is still doing. He is gathering people of different ages, people who've had different experiences, people who are going through different things, people of different ethnicities and backgrounds. And by his Holy Spirit and by his own strength, he is weaving together a family. We don't hold this church together. No way. Jesus Christ is the one who holds the church together. He's the one who can hold you together as well, right? And Christ holds us when no one else can. He is the strand that does not break. Our strength will fail, right? Human community will disappoint us, but Christ never abandons us. He holds us. And that means that we can keep holding one another. So what have we learned? It's not meaningless. It's not meaningless at all. We learned that no farmer farms alone. And that we need hands to share the labor. We need hands to reach down when someone falls. We need hands to keep us warm in a cold night. And beneath all of those hands, we need the hands and arms of Jesus himself to bear us up. For some of you here today, the key takeaway from this sermon may be, hey, just don't wait until the load you're carrying crushes you before you ask for help. For others of us, the key takeaway may be, hey, pay attention to those who have fallen down around you. Notice the person who is standing alone. Make room in your circle. Reach out to the one who has fallen. Stay close to that person who's going through a dark, cold night. May Christ be at the center of your life. May Christ be at the center of this community. And may Christ weave us into a strong cord of many strands. Thanks be to God. Amen.